All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust and welcome you all here today. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the May 17th meeting. These have been distributed to the trustees in advance of this meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that have been sent out previously?
Approve.
Second.
Have motion made and second to approve the minutes. Are there any additional questions or comments? Please cast your votes. And the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the ratification of payment claims that the trust has paid. These have been distributed to the trustees. Are there any comments or questions on the claims that we're going to ratify? The majority of them are associated with TIF 8, and there's some gold bond money in there that is a relatively small amount. Are there questions or comments? Chair will entertain a motion to ratify the expenditures. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the claims are ratified. Next item on our agenda is items for individual considerations. And item A is a resolution authorizing and directing the general manager or his designee to negotiate an economic development agreement for subsequent trust and city council action.
That's the minutes.
Just the minutes?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was reading last month's minutes, which I occasionally do. It's my bad glasses on. Thank you. I have an agenda now. Thank you. Item A is adopting the budget. We've had presentations at previous meetings on the aspects of the budget. Are there any final questions before we move to approve the budget?
What are the bonds rated? How are the bonds rated?
The city's bond rating is a AAA. Typically, when we do our bond issues, but both of them have us rated as AAA.
But does that rating flow through these gold bonds?
Typically, it does to some regards, because typically when a trust issues debts, the city provides its support, and typically it'll be one notch below AAA, which would probably get us a AA rated bond.
Are there any further questions on the budget presentations we've seen previously that we need to answer today? Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to approve our budget.
Second.
And motion made and second. Further questions? Cast your votes, and the budget's approved. Thank you very much. Item B is a resolution approving the extension and modification of Oklahoma City Public Property Authority Bond Anticipation Note 2006 as transferred and assigned to the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust relating to funding improvements for the Dell Business Service Center in the area bounded by Interstate 44, and I probably should read the rest of this sort of thing. Brett, would you want a brief explanation of what we're doing here?
Sure, I'll explain that. Back in 2004, we entered into we issued a note with J.P. Morgan Chase. It was subsequently amended in 2006 and has remained an OCPPA 2006 note. That's an annual note in which we just renew it each year. Right now, it's a variable rate debt where it's based on the 30-day LIBOR rate, which right now is about 24 basis points. It's very, very low, and the spread on that right now is we pay them 100 basis points plus whatever LIBOR is, and it adjusts monthly. What we're seeking to do here today are two things. We're extending the note till June 30 of 13, and then we're also modifying the note some regarding the spread. The bank has agreed to lower the spread from 105 basis points to 100 basis points, and we are actually paying down this note. It was originally at $16 million. Right now we owe $8 million, but we'll be paying the bank in the next day or two $1 million down on that to get that down to $7 million. So this is an annual thing that happens. As you'll recall, this note was assigned to you a few months ago, and that's all we're doing is just doing what we typically do at the end of a fiscal year.
This question may not be on point, but wouldn't you, are there covenants that would be such that they could call the note, these kind of notes?
There is not a
Covenants that basically under certain conditions they can call the note.
I would say there's not a call feature. There is it's subject to annual renewal. We have to get their approval to renew it. So if they don't extend it, I guess you could say they basically do call it. But there's not a true call feature with our note.
But no default
Uh,
There is potential default if we don't renew the agreements. It could constitute a default. But as long as we continue to make the payments and do these, it's...
I'd like to move approval.
A motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion made and second to approve. And there's further questions? Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And item B is approved. Item C is our next on the agenda. And this is Economic Development Trust also, renewing an agreement of support. Jim, you want to say something about this one?
No,
Brandon?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. This goes along with all of our outstanding debt with the Economic Development Trust, and this is required by the banks. In our case, it's J.P. Morgan Chase and Devon requires that with our line of credit that we have with Devon related to TIF number 8. This is just renewing the city's support for the debt. As a trust, when we go into debt, we have to have the city council has to authorize that occurrence of that in debt, and one way they do it, they also approve this support agreement saying they'll backstop essentially this debt on an annual basis. That's all they can do. So that's what we're doing here on this. So this will go to the city council on July 3rd, and for their consideration.
Any other questions?
All for a motion to approve.
Second. A motion made and second to approve. All those in favor, please cast your votes. Item C is approved. Thank you very much. Item D is an agreement for professional services with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation for community and economic development services. And Brent, would you like to say some words of explanation on this?
Yes, sir. This is the annual agreement with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation or the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. This is an annual contract. The funding for this comes from the city's general fund, comes to our trust, and then we contract with the chamber from there. This contract is at $900,000 for a base fee, plus a $2,500 per application fee that we also pay them as they administer that part of the strategic investment program. This is a increase over last year's budget of $790,000, and this actually will get them back at their funding level that they had a couple of years ago when we had to cut our budget significantly. Their contract was cut respectively with that. So it does have performance measures, has performance standards. We've amended some things. We've added some new things related to retail, delineating the retail functions and what our expectations are for retail. As we've had a consultant come through and make some recommendations, and we've tried to incorporate all of that into this contract.
Jim, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the effort to restore the funding from the level previous with the cut, but could you explain further the extra $100,000 for additional services and how that might be called upon?
We have historically, with other professional service contracts like this, we have had an additional service because there are things that just come up, and it provides us flexibility and for them to do things. I know when they're out recruiting a significant company, there may be an opportunity where we may need to do something additional. And I know when we were when they were working with Boeing, there was a significant amount of money that they spent traveling to Long Beach to help them help their employees feel good about Oklahoma City and all of that. And I think this is the type of things that I think the additional services would be used for.
Okay. And so you encumber the additional 100, and then they coordinate with you based on the as-needed request?
We will not encumber that money yet. That'll be on they'll have to consult with the general manager, make the request, and then we'll take it.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? A motion made to approve professional service agreement. Motion made and second. Are there any discussions?
Second.
Cast your votes, please. And the item is approved. Thank you very much. We're on to item E. And Brent, would you like to explain this one to us? This is
Yes, sir.
Myriad Gardens.
Yes, sir. Last fiscal year, this body entered into an agreement, a management lease agreement with the Myriad Gardens Foundation to manage the Myriad Botanical Gardens, and with the idea that the subsidy that the city would provide to them by the year for fiscal year 14-15 would change from what it is today, where the city would only be subsidizing 33% of the operations there. And this budget, or this contract, reflects, is an addendum to the original contract. All we're changing essentially are the employees that are designated for this project, along with the amount that we will fund, essentially the subsidy for the garden. So this year it's $951,000. It's an increase from last year, but they will be the part-time staff that's in the city's Parks Department budget is being moved to Myriad Gardens, and so the funding for that is also being moved along with that. So their budget for the year, this next fiscal year, is $3.9 million, and the city, through our subsidy of $951 and through the Parks Department's budget of $1.7, will provide the city subsidy. And I think it's 32% of the funding will come from Myriad Gardens operations, and the city will subsidize it at 68% this next fiscal year.
And it's anticipated that that subsidy will decrease in future years.
Yes, sir. We anticipate by 14-15, they have a plan by fiscal year 14-15 where the city subsidy would be 33% of their budget.
And keep in mind that a lot of these expenses would be expenses the city would incur normally just in maintenance of the gardens, so it's not entirely a new expense.
And there is a budget committee between the city and the foundation that Mr. Ryan sits on. So he was involved in the, at least overseeing the development of the budget.
Presentation, yes, was excellent. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Frank.
Just a curiosity question. I noticed that the city owns the equipment, maintains it. Does that except that there's a provision that if the foundation owns some small equipment, they own it, they maintain it. Just curious, why would the city not just have it all and makes it simpler?
I'm going to let Wiley answer that question.
I was listening. No, what was the question?
Pardon?
Why is some of the equipment owned and operated by the city and some of it owned and operated by the foundation?
We originally held the park, and the larger equipment they couldn't afford to buy. We couldn't give it to them without constituting a gift, so we kept it and we maintain it. And
Would that be like a chiller at the mechanical tube?
right, like a chiller, those kind of things.
It just talked about the small, it said this foundation might own small equipment, so.
Right, like weed eaters,
Yeah.
lawnmowers,
But so
those
does the
kind of
city.
things.
So does the city, according to this. I'm just curious, how,
Yeah. If they buy it, they own it.
okay.
If we buy it, we own it. In essence, that's what we've agreed to.
But the question is, how do we differentiate and what's the criteria for?
Yeah, how do we differentiate? We did an inventory at the first of what we have, and they're still our employees, so they're responsible for keeping their equipment.
It's really insignificant. I apologize for doing it.
I think it's really a little
I'm
more
just
strategic
curious.
than it appears. I think what happened is that it was a city facility, and we had certain assets over there that we were running. And as we turned it over to them, we gave them the smaller assets. We didn't give them the larger assets because they couldn't afford to run it. And then they've added to it and bought additional weed eaters and such, and then they bought those additional things that they own under their resources. So it's a blending of the two.
Thanks, I apologize for dragging it out.
And so size is less the criteria than purpose and who owned it originally. For instance, they own the ice skating equipment to make ice skating facilities out there.
Right. I think it really was, it was the stuff that we had at the time, and then they didn't take ownership of a few of those, but the smaller things that they've added upon.
And some bigger things, too.
And some bigger things, too.
I created more of a time delay here than anything else, sorry.
Well, actually, it's a very difficult issue to deal with, so it's a fair question. We struggled with how to phrase it and everything, so.
And there are no bad questions, Frank. Some of the answers may not be good, but there are no bad questions. All right, are there any other comments or questions on the Married Garden Project agreement? Larry?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, will we be getting a report on how the operation over there is going anytime in the near future?
We can get you one, sir. I'll ask for one from them, and then we will bring that back to you.
In other words, they're responsible for generating revenue,
That's correct.
and they generate the revenue from the renting of the facilities to people, and they also generate it from donations, and then that revenue plus the monies that we're talking about here are supposed to cover the expenses for the next year.
That's correct.
And I'd like to know if we're tracking along, how we're tracking along.
Or would you like quarterly meetings, for instance?
I would think quarterly, or, would be appropriate if the rest of the trust agrees.
Any comment,
Really?
concerns about it? We do this quarterly, because I think it's a good point, Larry. So, Brent, if you could arrange for me a quarterly
Yes,
presentation.
We'll work on. I'll get you an end-of-the-year report for this fiscal year at our at our next trust meeting, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any more comments or questions relating to this item? The chair would entertain a motion to approve addendum number 1.
Second?
A motion made and second. Any further discussion? Cast your votes. And addendum 1 is approved. Thank you very much. Item E, are we going to have a presentation on this one?
Yes, sir. Chris Fleming with the Midtown Renaissance Company is here today to give you a presentation regarding item 4F. This is a TIF 2 project in which they are seeking to build a minimum of 40 residential units, a 60-room boutique hotel, and a minimum of 6,000 square feet of mixed use. And I'll let him go over your project. Go over
Okay,
the
thank you very much.
Brent. Good afternoon, everybody. Our company, if you don't know about us, we've been before this committee before on TIF number 1, but Bob Howard, Mickey Clegg, and I are partners in this company, and we own roughly around 26 buildings in the Midtown area, plus a lot of vacant land. About 57% of those buildings as of today have been redeveloped, and several more percentages under construction. We currently have 72 residential units available for rent and 80 on the way, probably within the next year to 18 months as we finish the projects outlined in this TIF. Okay, I want to give you a brief update on the first TIF that we contracted with the trust on, or with the city on, and it was comprised of 8 projects, and out of those 8 projects, 7 of them are complete, and 1 of them is under construction and slated for completion before the end of this year, and that was for $1,500,000 in assistance and development financing, and we're on track to hit all the targets that we have in that agreement. I wanted to make sure you guys realize that before we asked you for another one. Oops. So now the agreement that I'd like to talk to you about today for, put up there for your consideration it consists of 3 projects. They are at the, I should have included a map, but they're right around 12th and Walker, 11th and Walker area. If you know where the restaurant Stella's, 1492 or Louis, these are kind of right there in that general vicinity, either right across the street or right around the corner from there. The 1212 North Walker building is 24 apartments, and it's located literally right across the street from 1492. And it was completed on June 1st of this year and is occupied by tenants at this point in time. 430 Northwest 12th is around the corner on 12th Street from this building. If you're familiar with where the Zebra is, this is kind of catty corner to where the Zebra Hotel is, and it's going to be at least 16 apartments due to be completed next year. And then the Ostler is, again, right across the street from Stella, and it is, we kind of determined the highest and best use of this property to be a boutique hotel, and so we're currently in developments to consummate an agreement with the hotel operator, and we look forward to moving forward on that project in the near future. So again, based on the calculations that Brent came back with the values that we anticipate having this property assessed at, and upon its completion, we respectfully ask for $1.1 million in economic or assistance in developing financing. I'll show you a couple of pictures of the projects. So there's 1212. You can kind of see that before it was an old parking garage with parking elevators, and we've turned it into a 24-unit apartment building with balconies on the east and west sides. And then this building is an old AT&T Southwestern Bell telephone building built in the mid-50s, and it will be converted to, again, apartments. And it's real interesting on this building. We're going to add a 3rd floor to it. It sort of sits up on a hill, and so we are really offering really great downtown vistas from the units that face south. And then again, the Ostler building is the 7-story building that sits at the corner of 11th and Walker, and is slated to become the boutique hotel. So I appreciate you guys' consideration, and would open it up for any
Are there any
questions.
questions of Mr. Fleming? Yeah, Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, thank you for all that you've done already and what you're continuing to do. I'm excited to see what's happening and the ideas about what could happen next. A couple questions, I guess, asking for some greater detail on the current project. Did I understand you to say at 1212 North Walker that the construction is complete and that those units are occupied today?
Yes, the construction wrapped up on the residential units on June 1st, and that building also has about 6,100 square feet of commercial space, and that commercial space is yet to be complete.
Okay. And then at 430 Northwest 12th, what kind of timeline are you looking at for that?
Construction on that would probably be, weather permitting, of course. On the low end, it'd probably be 9 months, and on the high end, it'd probably be 11 months. And we're currently, right now, it's out for appraisal at the bank, and so when that comes back, kind of the ball will get rolling on that project.
And then on the larger piece of it, the Ostler, what kind of timeline are you looking at?
We've been told construction on that should be in the 10-month range, but again, that's subject to plans being completed in the next few months, and so if we don't get any hiccups with other departments in the city and code and building plans and stuff like that, then we're anticipating this project being complete by the end of 2013, so by June 1st, or January 1st of 2040.
Okay, so pretty aggressive timelines.
Yep, we feel that we've learned a lot on our earlier projects, and so, we can take that knowledge that we've gained and apply it to these, and we've got a pretty good system worked out with contractors and plans and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I do think it's very appropriate for this type of funding assistance. I appreciate what you're doing. Perhaps a question for Brent, or maybe Jim, if you could help me. How does the assistance become available to the developer if something like the Osler doesn't move forward?
The way our contract is written, it was all based on them reaching a $15.8 million of taxable market value, and they have to reach that in order to qualify. If something happened, they could come back to us and say, we're not going to be able to make that. Let's say the Osler, I don't know exactly off the top of my head what percentage that is, say it's 50% of the, they could come back and ask for that, and we could consider maybe reducing the TIF allowance in that case if that happened.
Okay.
We actually had an occurrence happen with that when we did another TIF project where an amount was allocated originally. They came back and we realized that a portion of it was not going to be subject to taxes, and we reduced their TIF allocation at that time.
Okay.
We try to do it on a pro rata basis.
And then for this type of redevelopment that involves apartments to the public, is there any type of rent issue at play, or is it all based on market even though there's public funds involved?
This agreement is all based on market. They can charge on market.
Okay, thank you, and good luck.
And then also, Mr. Roth, our backup plan for the Osler, it was historically an office building, and we've looked at it to do it residential, but just the floor plates don't allow for it, and so the backup plan again would be for it to be office, to restore it as office. So it will get developed either way.
Larry?
Brent, if you would, I just, from what you said there, when we went over this earlier, and then again, in just skimming the reading here, I got the impression that on page 7 of 40, you have the kind of the obligations, the things that have to be met for the 1.1 million to be paid.
Yes, sir, and that is correct.
And so I took it as all or nothing, that if it wasn't met, no money would be given.
That is correct, and if we were going to reduce it, we would come back to this body with an amended agreement, is what I was trying to point out there. They have to reach the 15.8 and agree with the covenants on the property and all of that in order to qualify, in addition to the 40% occupancy on the housing side. That all has to be occupied, and they have to meet all those requirements in order to receive the $1.1 million.
And as far as the Osler is concerned, we're not really concerned that has to be a boutique hotel, as long as the total real estate ad valorem valuation hits the 15.8 million target.
That's correct.
It's a package deal for that amount of money. Mr. Ross' question is, what happens if they don't meet it? And the answer is, they're going to come back and we'll renegotiate the deal.
Question, yeah.
I take it the market does show that there is a demand for a boutique hotel in Midtown.
Yes, there is.
Any other questions? Mr. Fleming, thank you very much, and good luck.
Appreciate it very much.
We have a joint agreement to ratify if we are in favor of this TIF disbursement. This is typical. We've done this before on TIF kind of things, development money going into TIF.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second. Further discussion? Cast your votes. And item F is approved. Thank you very much. Item G are some change orders. This one's associated with the Outlet Mall. Any questions or comments on this particular project? Brett, you want to say something about it?
This is just wanted to point out, this project is funded by general obligation bonds that are over the purview of the city of Oklahoma City, and this is just to fulfill our agreement with the Horizon Group and putting in various traffic signal improvements in this area, and all we're doing here is just concurring with what the city has already done.
So moved.
Motion. Motion made and second to approve. Are there any further comments or questions? Cast your votes. The item is approved. Thank you very much. Next item, item H. Brett, you want to say something about this one?
Yes, sir. This is an assignment of an engineering agreement with Guernsey related to TIF number 4. When we moved the funding from the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, there were already existing contracts that the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority had with an engineering firm regarding a project down along the river, east of Meridian, along the river, doing some shoreline improvements. And this is the assignment of that contract. Since all the funds are now under the Economic Development Trust, the contracts need to be moved up to under the Economic Development Trust so we can pursue that project.
Do we have a lot of contracts like that?
In this case, we do not. This is the only ongoing project that we have in TIF number 4 right now.
Any other questions? Yeah, Frank.
Does the Corps have, are they pretty easy to work with, or they can be somewhat difficult?
It can be challenging. Although my experience is that most engineers are reasonable.
Except when they come a Corps. Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah, Larry?
Just a comment to Mr. Couch, since he kind of opened this up, talking about whether the Corps was easy to get along with or not. You are aware, sir, and I think the trust needs to, that there are a number of entities that are all interested in this same kind of geographic area down there. The MAPS 3 Trails money is going to be used to extend the Oklahoma River Trail from Southwest 15th and Meridian all the way up to Lake Overholser. So they're getting involved. There's also a joint effort, I guess, an ODOT effort to do a streetscape from Southwest roughly 15th Street to the south to complete that, and they're involved. And there's also some decision as to whether or not the bridge over the Oklahoma River will be widened or a pedestrian access will be done. So there's a whole lot of people that have got their finger in the pie at that one location, and I hope everybody works together as good as you want the Corps of Engineers to work together with us.
And a potential business improvement district.
And a potential business improvement district is also on the in the mix. So there's
Just we may have the.
What's going on? What ward is that?
it just happens to be the number 3.
Good luck, Larry. Any comments or questions? Additional comments or questions? Shall we approve a motion to sign the contracts?
Second.
A motion made and second. Shall we entertain, not approve? I'm sorry. Any other discussion? Please cast your votes. Item H is approved. Thank you very much. Item 5, our general manager reports.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Today, I have before you the May 2012 General Manager's Report. It's not much different than the April one. There was not that much activity regarding that, but I wanted to point out a few things to you on page, the last page on 13. I updated the information regarding the outlet mall. The outlet mall continues to exceed our original expectations. Right through April, it's at $102.8 million in sales, which is significant, as we only estimated $105 million for the entire 12-month period. And we're right at $24 million over target, or 30%, so that's significant. I did want to point out to you that in June, we received our ad valorem payments from our TIF districts, and I wanted to just give you an update on that. For TIF District number 2, if you look in here, we've got a fund balance of around $8 million in the bank. We received a check for $5.6 million for TIF District number 2, which is significant. We have an outstanding debt, I think, around, without looking at it, I think it's around $26 million. Yes, $26.2 million. So there are funds available to fund these projects that y'all are approving. So I just want to just reiterate that. And then the TIF number 4, which is the Dell TIF, or the Oklahoma River TIF, we received over $800,000 in June for that. And We're using that. And then in TIF number 8, which is the Devon TIF, we received about $250,000 in June on their property. They will not be fully assessed until completion, and we don't anticipate that to be until January of 2013. So, and then based on that value, we will receive their first large tax payment early in 2014. So,
Roughly, what would that be?
Estimates are roughly around $11 million. I will caution you that those are all subject to what the levy rates are at the time, and since we're working on the long-term financing, we're getting into the detail on what the levy rates are going to be this next fiscal year, and that's critical as to what that amount will be.
Yep.
Brent, what is, on page 6 on our expenditures, the financial summary, what is the status of our Blue Cross Blue Shield Economic Development Agreement?
On Blue Cross Blue Shield, I've reached out to them to see where they are. They're really slow to respond. Dealing with between them and AAA, they're extremely slow to respond. I have not actually heard from them in a while.
Any question? Yeah, Larry.
Brent, on page 2 on the bottom, and I will talk, I do have a vested interest since both UE and FMC are in Ward 3, so I will get that out up front. Do you have any status on where you stand on negotiations with UE? And then can you share anything about the status of FMC, and you may not be able to?
Yes, sir. On UE, I know it's their attorneys in Houston are going over the contract now, and it's hard to get them to get back with us, but we're pursuing them on that. Regarding FMC, it's my understanding they have advised their employees that they will be moving to Oklahoma City. So we plan on sending them a draft agreement in the next day or two to get that ball rolling. And then Robin has more to offer.
We actually are in Houston tomorrow talking with the employees that are being offered relocation.
Any other questions? Any comments from the staff?
Under General Manager's report, I think it would be appropriate to recognize Barbara Krieger as she will be attending in her present role, maybe in another role someday, but in her present role, her last Economic Development Trust meeting. She's leaving the chamber after 8 years, and she's really done a remarkable job of pulling the economic development activities of the chamber to a new level, and we do appreciate her efforts.
Robin, speaking for the trust, I think we appreciate all the work you've done. It's been some really exciting projects coming in by your years. Are there any other comments from the trustees? Comments from the staff, the public?
I apologize. I just wanted to remind you, you may have on your calendar there's a July 3rd meeting. That meeting will be canceled, and we'll have a special meeting on July 10th at 3 o'clock. Apologize for the time, but that's the only time I could get 3 of you in the room. So, and that will be our only meeting for the month of July unless something happens and we need a special meeting. So, because we're on our summer schedule, we'll have one meeting in July and one meeting in June, or July, August, and September. So,
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing nothing, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Good to see you.